Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and today I'm continuing my exploration of the BetterPress, and I had the idea of trying to do some heat embossing with it. So here's my idea. I want to ink this up with just clear Versamark ink. And I figure this might be a good ink to try because it is a more sticky ink, and so because I know a lot of the thinking behind the formulation of the special ink that was designed to go with the BetterPress revolved around the viscosity of the ink and something that was just a little bit more sort of thick. So I thought maybe Versamark might work well. And I know it's hard to see, but it's beautiful. Just the deboss design by itself is rather nice, especially if you're just looking for something subtle in the background. So now I'm going to be looking at BetterPress plates that might work well just as that sort of subtle deboss design to go behind, a focal image. But it did transfer well, the Versamark ink, because you can see I poured my powder over. There was quite a lot of static on this. I forgot about the whole anti-static powder just in my zeal for doing this experiment. And I did miss a spot, it looks like, as I was inking up the press plate. That is the hard thing to know, though, anytime you're inking with Versamark, just to know how good of a coverage you've got. And so here's what I was surprised by. Now, keep in mind, I am using the card panels that I purchased off of Amazon. So these are not the Spellbinders panels. So it's not the actual BetterPress paper. But what surprised me was that it's a very matte finish. So you know how usually when you heat emboss something, and I'm gonna try WOW because the first one I tried was a Sizzix gold, and then I pulled out some of my WOW embossing, some with glitter, and then I also pulled one out that is from Nuvo. And as I was saying, so you know how sometimes you've got the when you do your heat emboss techniques, usually most of the powders, not all of them, but most of them have a very shiny finish. I know specifically you can get matte finish embossing powders that don't have that shine, but by and large, I think everything I have, anyways, is meant to be shiny. It's meant to have that nice shiny surface or finish. And what I was surprised by was that after you've melted the powder, it actually it looks very matte. And in fact, I I was actually having a little bit of a hard time telling that whether the powder was fully melted, because you know how normally when you do your heat embossing, you can actually see that powder melt. You can see it become glossy and shiny, and so it goes from that very dull, powder to a very shiny finish. And here you can kind of see that happening, but the transformation isn't as striking as normally you would get in on regular cardstock. And if I tilt this, there isn't as much of a shimmer or a shine either. So that's all really, really interesting. Now, of course, the powder is going to sit in that deboss design, so it's going to make it even less debossed if you are looking for like a very... See how there's some glints of shimmer on that first panel, but on my second panel, which was with the WOW powder as compared to the Sizzix powder that I used first, there I didn't get any shine, any of that sort of glossy finish that you would normally that you would normally get. I think it's due to the cotton paper and maybe just how the enamel looks on cotton as opposed to on your regular cardstock. So I really found it to be quite fascinating, and so I wanted to try some different powders, because if you don't get that sort of glossy shine from a regular embossing powder, how would a powder that has some glitter in it, how would that perform? So I have this wow powder that is, I've put it away, so now I can't remember the actual name of it, but it does have some glitter mixed in with the regular kind of enamel that you would normally get in a powder. And so that's going to be my next test, just to see if we still at least have the glittery finish and how that works. So here it is, and I think I don't remember. It's gorgeous, and you can see all that shimmer and shine just even before I melt it because of the glitter that's in there. And one of the things that I tried to do was shake up the bottle a little bit. I don't use this all that often, so it's a rather full bottle. But one thing, if you are using powders that do have some glitter mixed in, do try to give it a bit of a shake just to get that glitter more thoroughly mixed in with the powder, because the powder is the enamel that's going to seal the glitter in. And so if there are some spots that are heavy in glitter, it may not actually get firmly stuck down to your substrate. And so I'm melting this one, and you can tell when it's melted. It still has a very flat, very matte look or finish to it. And I don't know if it was because of how I pressed. I don't think that's the case, but who knows. But that one, I'll show a close-up at the end. It's sort of, I think, the fine detail of this particular press plate really didn't come through. And I wonder if it's because the particles for that particular powder, especially given that it does have some glitter mixed into it, I think that sort of made all of the lines just a little bit thicker and a little bit fuzzier, and it wasn't quite as sharp of a finish as the gold. And so I think with this technique, and it'll probably depend a little bit on the press plate designs, but I think if you're going to do it, you really want to use a very fine embossing powder so that you have very, very fine particles. And if there are fine line details in the press plate that you don't, that'll help prevent the design from being distorted or just looking a little bit different, where you don't maybe see all of that nice detail. You'll see what I mean when I do the final close-up of all three finished panels. Here with this crimson, this is a Nuvo powder. And so it too was nice, fine detail. I think the detail of the press plate, it was able to retain it, and that turned out really well. But again, sort of a very matte finish. And so I was really fascinated. It's a very different look. But you can see you still have really all those fine line details were captured still. So here's that the blue one, sort of that teal one, is the glitter, and you can see you lose some of the detail, and the gold did beautifully. I think that one did the best. So you can see all of that, those fine lines, really close together. They come through really, really well. The red is good but not great compared to the gold, and the teal, I probably wouldn't use that again. Just because I feel like you lose so much in the design. And the leftmost panel, that was the first one with the Sizzix gold powder. So these are the 4 panels. Now these are onto the BetterPress, not the BetterPress paper, but the 100% cotton paper. Now I was just really curious, so I stamped out a rather solid stamp, and I heat embossed onto just regular cardstock, just so that you can see the difference between something that's been embossed onto regular cardstock and how shiny it is, see how it reflects as I tilt it, versus how it looks on the 100% cotton cardstock. And here, it's such a big difference. You can see that it's not nearly as shimmery and glistening as your heat embossing would generally look on a cotton or on a regular cardstock, versus how it looks on 100% cotton paper. So really fascinating. I like the look of it. It's just very different, and it was very unexpected. But at the end of the day, though, what I learned was not only that it looks differently, but that Versamark works. It'll transfer fine onto your card panels. So what I thought I would do is actually go ahead and run this a couple more times, but actually onto some regular cardstock. So I did do another exploration on how the BetterPress handles with just the 2 basic white cardstocks that I use the most. Personally, I use the 120-pound Accent Opaque for card bases a lot. Sometimes I actually use the Accent Opaque 80-pound for layering panels. But really I use my 100-pound Hammermill digital color copy paper for a lot, because it colors beautifully with alcohol marker coloring. It glimmers beautifully. It is a really nice weight, so I can use it for card bases as well. So those are the 2 white cardstocks that I use the most of. And so I wanted to see how the BetterPress plates work on those, and how they look embossed onto those panels as well. And the reason why I wanted to try this on cardstock was just to see, well, is it the paper, or is it for some reason like an optical illusion, the fact that it's debossed in? Maybe because it's debossed, it doesn't look quite as shiny. But here, check this out. So that's been letterpressed onto regular cardstock, and it is shimmery, it is shiny. You can see the difference between cardstock on the right and 100% cotton paper on the left. So really fascinating. So it is the cotton paper that I've never used cotton paper before, so I just didn't know how it reacts to something like the enamel in an embossing powder. And I'm just running this through one more time, so I wanted to try it out on both my Hammermill and on my Accent Opaque, just to see if, while we're exploring, just to see all the different variations. And one thing that I noticed between the 2 is, and I mentioned this in my exploration of better pressing onto regular cardstock, depending on the weight of your cardstock. So my Accent Opaque is 120 pounds, so it's actually thicker than the 110 pound. Remember, I'm not using the Spellbinders BetterPress. I'm using the off-brand cotton paper. Mine happens to be 110. And my Accent Opaque is 120, and my Hammermill is 100. With the Hammermill, this is really actually pretty interesting. So with the Hammermill, the debossing isn't as deep. So after you have embossed, that's why I'm feeling the panels right now. After you've embossed, it's almost flat now and level with the surface of the paper. So normally, if you stamped an image and you embossed, you would get a slightly raised finish. But because the BetterPress plates, when you run it through, it has enough pressure that it's actually going to deboss the design into your cardstock. And so with the 100-pound, being that it's lighter weight, there isn't quite as much pressure as this is going through the platinum machine. And so it doesn't leave as deep of a debossing or as deep of an impression as it would on a thicker cardstock. And when you then go and emboss onto that, it actually raises the image so that it's nearly flush with the original card panel, at least for the 100-pound hammer mill. So I found that to be kind of interesting. It gives you an entirely sort of like a different look because it's still glossy, it's still shiny, but it's not raised, and it's not debossed that much either, because some of this powder, it will fill in that debossed design. And so here is, I wanted to try again that glittery wow powder that didn't look super good on the cotton, and I wanted to see, is it the cotton that's like holding on to the powder, or is it the fact that it's just clogging the deboss too much? And so I just wanted to compare and contrast, and this actually held up much better. You can see a lot more of the fine detail. So here's the comparison. On the right is regular cardstock, on the left is the cotton paper. And so these are both cardstock, and you do get that nice shine, and so I would definitely say that it if you're looking for the normal finish that you would expect from your embossing powders, do your better pressing onto cardstock. But I will say that that matte finish, it does kind of look neat. And so that might be just an option for a different look. But part of the reason why I like embossing is for that nice shine and that finish. But if you're maybe doing like a watercolor technique and you don't want, because with watercoloring, often you do want something a little bit more subtle and you might not want all that shine, but being embossed, it might, or having the enamel finish might help you to kind of keep the colors from bleeding a little bit. So having that matte finish actually might be a nice thing, might be something that you want to go for. So really excited, very fascinated by this exploration series, and I've been having a lot of fun, and I'm going to continue to do some more exploration. Thanks for joining me for this one, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.